The doctor recommended it for most people, but for a couple patients he actually administered it, and that's where he got caught.
And did these patients have a negative reaction to this drug?
Some of them did, some of them didn't, but it was, I mean, again, some people will have negative reactions to any drug, and some people won't, but it was pretty much, the one person he did get caught with, this person did not have a negative reaction.
Wow.
And he got caught.
Oh.
But the person was also very sick at the time, and I believe is now dead. This was also years ago, a few years ago.
I guess that's going to scare a lot of doctors from prescribing what could be termed alternative medicine, but could actually help.
Well, I just think it's a lesson that, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't refer people, that you can't give people the certain information, because I think just giving someone information is just as valuable, if not more valuable, than actually administering something to them.
Right.
At least they have the power to leave, to think about it, and to make their own decision and do what they want to do with that information, which is what most physicians do.
Right.
And there are many physicians who do lean towards, not necessarily leaning towards all alternative approaches, but physicians are really learning that complementing Western medicine with alternative therapies is probably much more effective.
Now, what is hyperbaric oxygen, and is it legal?
It's not approved. It's basically just inundating your system with oxygen, trying to oxygenate, hyperoxygenation of cells, thinking that it would kill HIV or kill any kind of disease in your system.
Is it easy to get this kind of treatment?
No. The only place I know of is a few places, and one place in San Bernardino, Dr. Hughes, who was doing it.
So basically you just surround the body, or you infuse the body?
You're just placed in such an atmosphere that there's so much pressure that all the oxygen is getting into your system and killing any disease.
Do you feel that this process, being fairly simple, should be made more available to people who want to try it?
I'm not quite sure on how expensive it is, and I haven't really seen clean data to demonstrate that it is effective. I believe there was one study in Massachusetts that said it was effective. I'm not going to discount it because I've never seen anyone go through it. I've never followed anyone, and I don't know anyone who has done it and said it destroyed them, or has done it and said that it has benefited them.
Is it a fairly new thing, or has it been around for a while?
It's been around for years. The research goes back to, I believe, Germany, World War II type thing. It's been around. It's been done for a long time.
But there just hasn't been any good, solid, thorough studies done to show that it works.
And there's a lot of people that say, yes, this is a conspiracy of the FDA and big business trying to crack down on it because I guess it is a cheap alternative.
How can they regulate oxygen, I guess, right?
Yeah.
How could they, put a patent on it and bottle it and sell it? I guess that would be kind of hard to do.
But I guess the only problem I would have with it, with a lot of the alternative approaches that come out, such as hyperbaric chambers or ozone or anything that says it's a cure, it's an immediate red flag. Another immediate red flag is if they charge for it, charge a lot for it, which ozone is notorious for, charging thousands and thousands of dollars for these ozone machines that people eventually stick up their butts and basically lose $5,000 like nothing. And anything that says will make you HIV negative, which becoming HIV negative you don't want to do.
You don't want to become HIV negative?
When a person becomes HIV positive, it depends on on how.
Definition, maybe, on how you perceive it.
It depends on what a person is saying HIV negative is. By most standards, when a person is HIV positive, and when a person gets tested, they look at a person's antibodies, which is their immune response. They're not looking at they're not looking at the virus itself. And most people don't know that. They think that they're actually looking for a virus, that because you're HIV positive, they have pulled a virus out of you. And
HIV negative.
HIV negative has the connotation that you don't have any antibodies anymore. And when you approach the researchers that say, we have done this research and our patients are now HIV negative, we say, well, did you do PCR on these people? No. We say, well, how do you know that these people are HIV negative? Well, we did antibody testing, which means they've just destroyed their antibodies. They've destroyed their immune response. They didn't get rid of the virus. The virus is probably still there. And they work with us, with the community. You'll see signs, we will make you HIV negative. And so a person thinks, great, they're going to cure me. And I don't know how they're actually becoming HIV negative. I mean, there were a lot of different treatments that claimed will make you HIV negative.
Right.
And people just didn't understand the concept because they don't understand the medical process on what is actually meant by becoming HIV negative. Because
so there's a lot of miscommunication, a lot of
misunderstanding with the community. And the people who are out there pushing these things are making a lot of money. They're not researchers. They're not scientists. They're marketers.
No, what about ozone? Is that basically the same thing, or is that...
Yeah, I put ozone up there as probably the biggest crock I've ever heard of. Why would you want to put something in your system that is known to rip apart your lungs? I mean, you always hear ozone, in the atmosphere. You hear of ozone warnings. It's an oxidative molecule. If you breathe it in, it can literally destroy the tissue of your lungs. It's a free radical. A lot of treatments behind HIV are into reducing the amounts of free radicals in your system. Massive amounts of vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E, different types of antioxidant approaches revolve around getting rid of free radicals in your system. And infusing ozone into your system is introducing more free radicals. Ozone, O3, is a very reactive molecule. It just basically, the second it gets out of whatever created it, it breaks down immediately into oxygen and an O1 molecule. And it's that O1 molecule which is very destructive.
So this is not legal then?
No, it's not legal. And we've had a lot of clients who have tried it. A lot of our clients went out and spent $5,000 on these ozone machines. And
what's the result? Do they...
Nothing. Everyone will say it's the biggest mistake I've ever made, and they all feel like idiots. I mean, a lot of them will repeatedly say, and some of these people, this is their life savings. For a person with AIDS, $5,000 is a lot of money. And they've, really took a major loss at spending all this money on someone that told them, this will make you HIV negative.
A lot of, there are some camps that say that,
Oh, yeah.
this is beneficial.
And they've met with us. And whenever we've approached them, I know I can't mention a name, but whenever we've approached these people and asked, we would like to see your data, we would like to talk to some of these people that you've cured, and that's the last we hear of them. They will not present us with any data to say that this is what they've done, that they've actually done it. And they will not let us talk to any of their patients that they've cured. And as far as I'm concerned, that's immediately, why can't we talk to these people? Why don't you have any data for us? And, we'll have people come down and say, well, you're just as big of a conspiracy as the FDA or the NIH. And it's kind of like, and there's a lot of people that think we're funded by them. And, no, we're not.
You're more of an independent company, is separate from those two entities. So.
Yeah. Well, actually, kind of ironically, we are now funded. A lot of our funding comes from Burroughs Wellcome.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's an interesting twist in there. But we have actually...
you operate, fairly independent. You aren't answering directly to...
No, not at all. In fact, we have no obligation to them at all. They give us the money and literally said, just keep doing what you're doing. And they've actually attended our forums it was real kind of ironic. One of them, a representative from Burroughs Wellcome, attended one of our forums, and I didn't know it. and she sat through the whole thing, and it was at a point where I openly criticized AZT, and they said, well, you know, this was great. I'm glad you're doing this. And it's real strange how some of the drug companies, you know, we've been, and it's real strange to see the community reaction, because for years and years we've been fighting. You know, we've given so much to you through us buying your drugs. When are you going to start giving back to us? And, you know, we're kind of amazed and we're kind of taken by it, but now Burroughs Welcome literally is doing that. They're funding a lot of community organizations that would probably not be able to exist without funding coming from these places.
That is interesting. Maybe they're opening up and realizing that.
That they made a mistake.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of organizations, in fact, APLA was one of them, that said, you know, we don't want your blood money. You know, we don't want to take money from you. And I finally sat back and realized, well, we've been bitching about them not reaching out to the community, and they're trying to reach out to us, and we're cutting their hands off. And so we thought, okay, let's take their money and see what happens. And so far, it's been a great thing, and they've helped us, and we've helped them, and if it keeps our program going, and we have absolutely no answering to do to them. We do provide them with reports that we just do, thinking, okay, we'll do this. You know, we feel obliged to give them reports of what we're doing.
Sure.
And we have no ties. They do not have any kind of contract saying you must say this or do this. And it's just...
That sounds great. I mean,
Yeah.
progress is being made. So, but what is aloe vera? I mean, how does it work?
Aloe vera, well, there's really the component within aloe vera called astaminin, which may have some medicinal properties. It's basically an antiviral. Most people have been using it for a while, not really knowing how to use it. Some people will take the plant and put it in a blender and drink it. Some people have been going out and buying the aloe vera juices that you can buy in a health food store, and those basically are 99.9% water, very little aloe vera, and you can get the aloe vera extract through just different distributors.
So you need to make sure that it's the pure, more pure.
Pure, and it's some distributors will actually just call it astaminin instead of calling it aloe vera. And you can get it through different distributors around the country.
Is it helpful? I mean, does it do anything?
We don't know. There really hasn't been any clinical studies done. There's one study in Canada that's going on right now that's been going on for actually a couple of years. And for Canada to be doing a clinical study for a couple of years is pretty amazing. So we're expecting this to be really promising. And we should have the results sometime very soon. So we're hoping that yes, this is effective, just because of its...
Treating the symptoms, I
Mm-hmm. I mean, if it improves your quality of life, then it's effective.
And it's a natural thing.
Natural,
as opposed to
yeah. I mean,
high-tech drug. Or in your opinion, what changes would benefit the patient? I'm sorry, let's see. We've already talked about ozone, so. Because AIDS can kill, does this mean that patients should be given free rein over the treatments they use and choose?
that's real difficult, because some people just aren't informed. They don't have the information where they can make the decisions, and it's hard to know if someone is informed. And if a person with AIDS says, I want this and I want this, it seems like the doctor has to be able to make some kind of rational midpoint decision to decide whether or not they feel their patient is educated enough to know about it, or does the patient have dementia? That's a problem.
Well, say a patient in Idaho and his doctor only knows about AZT, and he doesn't, he won't really, that's all he can really do. He's stacked up with other patients with other problems. The guy can't really,
Then I think in that situation, the doctor should listen to the patient, because the patient in that situation, if the patient knows enough to question a physician about AZT, then the patient probably knows a lot more than the physician, and that tends to be the case in a lot of situations outside of major urban areas where physicians, all they know about is AZT. There's still a few physicians who know that DDI may be more effective than AZT and will just stick with AZT because that's what they know, and that's what they're comfortable with.
Then the patient should be able to...
The patient should be, yeah.
He should, I guess, just educate himself. That's the main thing.
Mm-hmm. But I think the patient should also be ready for a fight. The patient should be ready to show the literature to the physician and to be, I hate to say it, but the patient on some level has to be able to speak on the same level as the physician, and that's difficult. And I think if the patient can demonstrate a basic knowledge about his own body and about what's happening with the disease and how he feels, and basically just have a level of knowledge that the physician can see in the patient. Most cases, I think the physician will listen to him because a lot of
gain a respect for the patient at that point.
because a lot of physicians aren't used to dealing with educated patients, and that's been a problem with a lot of AIDS patients. That AIDS patients go in and say, "I know this, 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 and I'd rather do this, and I'd rather do this," and the physician just stands there and says, "How do you know all this?"
It overwhelms the doctor.
Yeah. And in a lot of cases, it's real threatening to the doctor because they just went to medical school for the past 10 years. And here comes in somebody who's, been doing a little reading for a month and knows maybe more than the physician. And because AIDS is such a difficult thing to stay on top of, you almost want to have sympathy for the physician and say, look, you probably don't have the time to sit and read these medical journals and read through all the literature to stay on top of all this stuff. And that's where people like myself and other AIDS educators come in, that we have the time, and that's our positions to concentrate specifically on AIDS and to stay on top of the journals and to stay on top of the research, to get the information out to physicians as well as patients and clients. And a lot of physicians do come to us saying, "Hey, I've heard this and this. What do you think? Do you have the references to back this up?" And yeah, I'll Xerox the stuff, fax it to you, and they're really appreciative of our services. And I think it's great that most physicians can kind of come down from their pedestal and realize that maybe I'm not God, and maybe I don't know everything there is to know. But unfortunately, there's some physicians out there that say, I'm the doctor, you're the patient, take this.
Do you see a future, or what I should say, what is the future for treatments? Is there anything new on the horizon, and what changes do you feel that will take place in the FDA and to help treatments of this virus?
What I see happening is, because there's probably so many different things happening in the body and in the systems, that I think there needs to be much more research on what HIV is actually doing. We still don't know what HIV is doing. There's always been the thought that HIV is just attacking the T cells and killing it like that, and we're finding out that that's not the case. We're finding out that it's working in so many other different ways, but we don't know what those mechanisms and those ways are. And I think there needs to be much more research, much more basic science research on how HIV is causing disease. And that's going to dictate what happens with treatment approaches. Because right now, AZT just works in one mechanism. And most of these drugs only work in one mechanism. The biggest hope we have right now is our TAT inhibitors, our protease inhibitors, because they work in different mechanisms. And if you can go with combinations of things, it can prevent one thing from happening, may prevent several things from happening. And there are so many different theories as to how HIV causes disease that we're probably going to end up going with 3 or 4 different combinations of treatments to counteract everything it's doing. It may be doing one thing, it may be doing all of these things. We really don't know that. And we're probably going to be leaning towards 4 or 5 different drug cocktails in a mixture, or alternating things, which we're already doing now.
How about, have you heard about this experimental vaccine?
GP160.
I'm not sure if that's the name of it yet.
That's a whole hour and a half interview.
We got about a minute and a half.
I'm really leery about vaccines right now because I don't think we know enough about long-term effects of it. With a vaccine, what you're doing is you're injecting more of the virus envelope into your system.
Sounds pretty scary.
And if there's an autoimmune aspect of HIV, meaning that the virus is being confused for other immune cells and the immune system is combating itself and killing itself, then by adding more of this viral envelope into you, it may be adding oil to the fire. And that's something, we've done small-term or very short-term safety studies, and yeah, they've shown to be safe in a short term, and there are some new immune responses happening. But on a long term, I'm very afraid of what it can be doing.
It hasn't been around long enough, has it?
No, it hasn't. And when people ask me about it, I give them, yes, there are new immune responses, but we don't know the long-term effects. And I try to give people the pros and cons of it and let them make their own decisions, their own choices as to how they want to approach it themselves. But there's a real interesting story behind GP160 right now, if you want it.
Yeah, what is it? Really?
Well, the pharmaceutical company, Microgenesis, has been lobbying Congress for the past 2 years, and finally Congress approved $20 million out of the defense budget to be used specifically for the Microgenesis GP160. And that's really overstepping a lot of boundaries. It's going beyond the researchers, going directly to politicians who know nothing about research, who know nothing about medicine. And now we have Congress dictating research, saying, we've just given you $20 million, now you do research on this one drug. And it's completely going above and beyond any kind of peer review that's traditional with any kind of research or medical practice.
So you don't feel that...
I think it's a very bad precedent that these uneducated politicians are telling us what to do.